I'm just realizing little bit took my TBR magnet and I put it somewhere and I don't remember where it is. Hello everybody, my name is Kelsey and we're about to get very, very nerdy with my favorite books about books, kind of. As a book lover yourself, obviously, because why else would you be here? I'm sure you have your share of books that are about books or writing in some way that you love. I made me think. I was thinking about this, and I started thinking about the books that include books or writing or something that's related to books in some way. And I thought I would make a list of some of my favorites. So I picked 10, and they're not just about like books or writing, but writing is heavily present or books are heavily present in some way. So that's my story. That's what I'm saying. That's why we're here. Let's dive in. The first one, there's quite a few from this author that I could have chosen, but this is my favorite of those related to books, so that's why it's on this list. And that is Funny Story by Emily Henry. Now this is a little bit different because she does have some books that are about people who are writers. Like she has Book Lovers, which is all about like going to a small town. She has Beach Read, which is all about two writers. This one is about a librarian. So this book follows Daphne and Miles. It's all in Daphne's perspective. And Daphne was engaged to be married. And her fiance had a best friend who was dating Miles. And he always promised there was nothing between them. And then one night, like on his bachelor party or something, he started rethinking things and basically called off the wedding because he thought that he was in love with this other woman. So she breaks up with Miles, the other woman, best friend, breaks up with Miles. And so the two of them are like, what do we do now? So they end up living together because he needs a roommate. She needs a place to go. Here's the best thing. She's a librarian, specifically in the children's department at the local library, and she's counting down the days. Like, they have this big fundraiser at the end of the summer, and she's staying for that. But after that, she's out of there because she's only moved to this town for her now ex-fiance. And so she and Miles end up getting invited to both of their exes who are now marrying each other. And they pretend to be dating to kind of tick them off. And so it's the two of them. I mean, it's way more than that because, like, she's leaving and Miles is trying to convince her, not necessarily to stay, but, like, to give her, like, a tour of the town because, like, this is where he grew up and, like, he's lived there for a very long time. And so he knows the area and he wants to show her the stuff that is fun. And so he wants to give her a good time. And so, like, he takes her out on all of these, like, adventures. She kind of starts rethinking the move. She starts having friends when she didn't really have friends because, like, she was the person who, like, made the relationship her identity and wasn't really anyone outside of that. So I loved this book. I thought this was a really good romance. I liked seeing Daphne and the character developments that she has in this book. I mean, Miles has some too, but, like, specifically her, she has been through some stuff and she feels like she's, like, I don't know, not really a person. And so to see her come into her own and, like, have friendships and, like, the normal things that make you an adult. But it's also this job of her, like, reading to kids and creating this really fun adventure for them at the end of the summer and this big fundraiser for the library. It made me very happy. So, like, it's not about a book per se, but it's about a librarian and her job is a big part of the story. So I loved this one. All right, the other one I do own, but it's currently in Peanut's room, who is asleep, which is Inkheart. I talked a lot about this in the last, like, I want to say a couple of months because it's been in quite a few videos. But this is a middle grade series. The first one is Inkheart. It's a trilogy, and I loved this book growing up. But it follows our main character Maggie and her father, and they're just living their life. He's I think a book restorer is the official title, but, like, he's the book doctor. He like takes old books and he refurbishes them and makes them workable and readable again. He and his daughter have this magical ability that you find out through the book where he can read things out of books. So he doesn't read out loud anymore, because when his daughter was really young, he was reading the book Inkheart and out loud, and the big bad guy came out of it, and his wife went in it, and he doesn't really know what happened, so he kind of stopped reading out loud because of that. And so this big bad guy shows up and needs his help, and so he and Maggie get forced into some situations where they're forced to read out loud. I really liked this series. It's all about like diving in and out of books. As you get later into the series, you actually go into some books, but it's just this magic about this book and authors and the world of Inkheart, and it's just so fun and whimsical, and I don't know, I just really liked it. The next one is the Guernsey Literary and Potato Peel Pie Society by Mary Ann Schaefer and Annie Barrows. This is I can't remember what it's called, but it's written in letters. And we follow our main character, Juliet. It takes place it says January 1946. So it's after the Second World War, and they're trying to pick up the pieces, and she's a writer. And so she randomly gets this letter because this guy on this little island of Guernsey has a book with her name in it, and he really enjoyed the author. It has like her name and her address in it, and so he like writes her a letter, basically like, this is super random, but like, I have this book by this author, your name was in it. I was wondering if you had any recommendations for other things by him or other books like this. And so they kind of strike up this pen pal relationship, and it is discovered that they have this society called the Guernsey Literary and Potato Peel Pie Society, which was all about getting together and reading books, but it was during the German occupation, and it was also a little bit about rebellion at the time, and the woman who was kind of in charge of that. And so it's their friendship told through these letters, and other members of the society start writing to her as well, and she decides to put together, if I remember correctly, she decides to put together an article, maybe it's a book, about the society during the World War. Writer, it's about books, like they basically pretend it's a book club, but they also eat pies. It's just a bunch of friends getting together, and they created the society so that they could do that. And it's very well done. There is a movie on Netflix, which isn't my favorite. I feel like I remember like reading it and going, or watching it and being like, I mean, the book was better, but it wasn't terrible if I remember correctly. Either way, this is a fun one because of the way that it's written and the way that you connect with these characters through letters. All right, the next one is one that, if you know anything about me, you knew I couldn't do a list without this one, which is The Missing Manuscript of Jane Austen by Sari James. This is basically a book in a book. I read this a few years ago and have not stopped talking about it since. Our main character, Samantha, who is in London, and she buys like this poetry book, and there's a letter tucked in the back, and it is an unfinished letter written by Jane Austen to her sister, mentioning a possible manuscript and a book that she wrote and a place that she wrote it. And Samantha's like, I'm sorry, what? And so she goes to this place, and the guy who owns it is trying to clean it up and sell it, and she kind of convinces him to let her in and figure out if this manuscript is there. And it is, and then they read it together. So, like, I've talked about this a lot, but like, I would say 80% of this book is the actual manuscript itself, and then there's interjections at the beginning, the end, and in between that show like the characters taking breaks and talking about it, and like you learn about them as well. What I love about this is Sari James has a few books that are based on Jane Austen and her life, and clearly this is supposed to be like a first manuscript that turns into the other books by Jane Austen. So there are hints to characters from all of her books. There are instances that are in here that are similar. It's a very different story than anything she wrote, but I could believe, based on how this is written, based on the characters, that this could legitimately be a manuscript by Jane Austen. So if you are a fan of the Jane Austen, of the Regency romance, this is for you. I could not put it down. It felt like I was reading another Jane Austen book for the first time, and that was just a lovely feeling. Even though I know it wasn't, and like definitely it's been modernized a little bit, but like there's that. But then you also have Samantha and this other guy, Anthony. There he is, and their friendship relationship as this is happening. I just really liked it, and I will never stop raving about it, and I really need to reread it to remind myself what happened and how good it was, because I was obsessed. All right, the next one is one that I read. I think it's the most recent read book on this list, and that is The Secret Book of Flora Lee by Patty Callahan Henry. This is a historical fiction mystery book for people who like the mystery element. It's not a cozy mystery, but it has the feeling of one, in the sense of like, you're curious, you want to know what's going on, but it doesn't have like those thriller elements that like could potentially be a little scary. So if you want a more lighthearted, less stressful mystery, this is for you. This book follows our two main characters, Hazel and her sister Flora. When Hazel was 14, her sister was 5. It's during World War II. It takes place in 1939. They're evacuated from their home in London and sent to the country to live and be safe. And so they're on this farm with this woman and her son, and they're just living their life. And the way that Hazel basically helps her sister calm down and forget about the horrors of what's happening around her, she creates this world called Whisperwood. It's an imaginary. They tell stories to each other, but only the two of them know the name. It jumps 20 years in the future, and Flora Lee went missing, and something happened at this farm, and they just really don't know. They think they know, but they don't know. And so it's 20 years later, and Hazel's just trying to live her life, and she works at a bookshop, and this book manuscript comes across her desk, and it is titled Whisperwood, and she reads it and realizes that like it is very, very similar to the world that she created for her sister. And she's like, what does this mean? Is my sister somehow still alive? Like, I need answers. And so she goes down the rabbit hole and tries to figure out what the heck is going on. It's a mystery. It's about Hazel kind of discovering the things of the past, and kind of getting a second chance at life on a couple of things, and just reconnection and coming into her own. And like, she works at a bookshop, and she's always kind of wanted to be a writer. And so is that a dream that she can pursue? Like, there's lots of stuff with this book, but it was fun. And it's very springtime, actually. So this might be a little weird time to recommend it, but it gives me the spring vibe, summer vibe, because it takes place. I don't think there's a specific like time of year it takes place that I remember, but it has the vibe, since they're on the farm and they talk about being out in the fields. It has that vibe. But I loved it. I think you can read it whenever, but it's clearly about a book and a world and the mystery between the people who created it. So the next one's a little strange, because I am recommending it, but I don't own it anymore because I unhauled it because I knew I wasn't going to reread it. I think I gave it 3 stars, but I thought it was really good still. Either way, it's Finlay Donovan is killing it. It's the first in a series. It ends a little bit on a cliffhanger, so like, I don't know why I haven't picked the second one up, because I am interested in it. But we follow our main character, Finlay Donovan, who is struggling, single mom. She and her husband have been divorced. I think he married a younger woman, or was with a younger woman or something. And so she is just trying to make ends meet and keep her kids. And she's a struggling author, and she can't come up with a good idea. So she meets her editor, her agent, in a coffee shop, and kind of explains this idea of a, woman for hire, a single mom woman for hire. And she's overheard by someone who thinks that she is legit, and basically hires her to kill someone. And it's her and the shenanigans that ensue from that. Like, it is humorous at times, but it does have a significantly more serious undertone because of like the things that she's doing, what's going on. There is a mob element to it, so that's always fun. I thought this was fun. I mean, it's mostly mystery element where she's trying to figure out what the heck is going on and how to get away with this thing that she really didn't want to do in the first place, and also keep her kids and make money. And so we have this dual thing, but it's about a writer. So maybe it's not the most book-centric book that I have on this list, but it's about a writer. And I thought it was fun, and I liked it, even though I don't own it. And like, I still think like 3 stars is a pretty good rating. It wasn't, I don't think, my favorite thing in the entire world, but it did keep me on the edge of my seat, and I was interested in this character and kind of what was going on. Another one is another romance, and that is Business or Pleasure, and this is by Rachel Lynn Solomon. It follows a ghostwriter who basically, she's not happy with like her most recent um, person that she ghost wrote for because she was given 0 credit. She went to like the book premiere and got absolutely no credit whatsoever. And so she's really upset about this, and she ends up going to a bar and having a one-night stand with this guy. And it was the most terrible one-night stand she's ever had. And it turns out that her next gig is for this guy who is I think he's like a D-list actor. He makes money basically going to like conventions. He was in like this werewolf show when he was really young. And like it's like a very high fandom. So she ends up being the ghostwriter for this book, and it turns out this guy is the one that she had her one night stand with, and it comes out that this one night stand was absolutely terrible. So the two of them create this deal where they'll do the writing, they'll help each other out, and then at night she will coach him on how to be a better lover. So it's funny, it's very sex positive. There was a lot about this that I really enjoyed. I think I gave this 5 stars. She's a writer. The reason that they're together are because she's ghostwriting his book. So you have that element to it as well. And I just really liked these characters. I like seeing them together. I liked seeing, like I said, it's incredibly sex positive, and I love that element about it. And I like that she's the one teaching him, and like his willingness to learn, and because of that they're like opening up to each other about their past relationships and things like that, because he did date someone on the show, I think his love interest on the show, and maybe got married. It's been a couple of years, but either way, they're just very cute, and I like a lot about this. But the next one is a good fall recommendation, and I've recommended this a bunch before, and I'm sure you've seen it, and that is The Very Secret Society of Irregular Witches by Sangu Mandana. The sequel to this came out earlier this year, and I am wanting it right now. This follows a world where there are witches, but they're kind of hidden. So our main character, Mika Moon, is a witch, and she has a YouTube channel where she actually is magic, but it's like, look at this magic I did. And so of course no one actually believes that she's really a witch and thinks it's all editing and stuff like that, but like they believe in the aesthetic, and I like it. And she's basically reached out to by this guy who says, hey, I live in this house, we kind of work in this house, and the person who owns this house has 3 young witches. Help, we don't know what to do. Please will you come train them? And she's like, that's unheard of, I'm interested. So she shows up, and so it's her training these 3 guys, or these 3 kids, but there's a guy there, and he's like the librarian, and he's in charge of like the library, and like he's very invested in these girls' lives, and he is grumpy and not so sure about Mika, and it's their romance. It's very House in the Cerulean Sea vibes, in the sense of like you have this house collection of people and these 3 kids who are Hellraisers. And so I really liked it. It's very cozy, it's very fun. It's, if you need like a very hard and like fast rules when it comes to the magic system, this is probably not your book, because like there is a magic system, there is magic, but it is very like whimsical. There's not really any rules. I mean, there are, but it's not described. Am I making any sense when I say that? It's just a fun, cozy read. I loved it. I can't wait to read the second one, but it has a librarian in it, and he is amazing, and I love their romance, and I love everything about them. So that's a very good one. The next one is one that I highly recommend you getting the audiobook for as well, and that is Heidi's Guide to 4-Letter Words, and this is by Tara Civic and Andy Arnst. So it follows our main character, Heidi, who was a kindergarten teacher. It all takes place in Minnesota. And she ends up getting like this gig, that's not the right word, this job as like the secretary or front desk person at this audio recording studio. And she's like, fantastic. And she discovers that they record a lot of romance novels and things like that. And so that is not anything that she has ever thought of. And she ends up having this like audio equipment. And one night she gets very intoxicated and ends up accidentally, like, not accidentally, but like she ends up drunkenly creating a semi-podcast and like producing it and sending it out in the world, and it becomes really popular. And it says here that that is how Heidi's Discount Erotica was born. And so it's her, and on this podcast she kind of admits having like the biggest crush on her neighbor, and it's her and one of the women who work at this audio studio, like come in and do like audio recordings. It is a writer, I think. Actually, like she doesn't work there, but she's a writer, and her books are produced there. And she is helping Heidi kind of come out of her shell a little bit and like introduces her to certain types of books and tells her to read things. And so she does it through this podcast form. And it's the two of them plus Heidi getting up the nerve to kind of possibly admit her crush to the guy that she has a really big crush on. It is so cute. It's very smutty. So like, well, okay, it's not incredibly smutty in the sense of like, yes, there are some smutty scenes, but a lot of the smuttiness in this book comes from her reading books. I really think it's awesome. It's really fun. It's really funny. If, like I said, you can have the audiobook, highly recommend. I believe it's a full cast recording, but I might have made that up. But because it has these audiobook or these podcast elements, it lends itself very well for audiobook. It's not very long. It's just a fun, cute romance. And I am obsessed. Actually, literally sitting here makes me want to reread it because it was just so much fun. And like the romance is so wholesome. Even though it has smutty moments, it is incredibly wholesome, and seeing her kind of like have a guy that's like perfect for her, I love everything about it. And the last one is actually two, but I'm highlighting the first one because I think that one works more, which is the Divine Rivals. Well, it's not the Divine Rivals series. The first one's Divine Rivals. The second one is Ruthless Vows by Rebecca Ross. I cannot remember what the series is called, but it's a duology. It was really, really popular last year, but it follows two reporters and a typewriter. So that's where the writing element comes in. They're basically both vying for the same position on a newspaper and end up through a series of events being on the front lines of this war. It is fantastical, but if you go in expecting it to be like a really big fantasy, you're going to be disappointed. It's more historical fiction with some fantasy elements in it because the war is between two gods. So like there is magic, and I think the second one has more magic than this one by a lot. There is a typewriter that it's like a big part of the plot, and it's magical. And then again, this war between the two gods, the gods are magical. So there are like elements of it that are magical, but most of the time it feels just like a World War II type of setting. But it's these two people who are enemies of sorts, and their relationship. I love them. It's amazing. I knew going in that this was going to be more historical than fantasy, so I was not disappointed. But I know a lot of people who went in really early on and thought it was going to be super fantasy because it was marketed that way, and it's not. So if you know that going in, you're going to be fine. Either way, I love the romance. I love the writing. I am not someone who loves World War settings. I know I've read a lot of them recently. I say that a lot, and then I feel like in the last couple of years, I've read quite a few that are like a war setting, and it's not my favorite, but this one was done very well. Like, it doesn't shy away from the ruthlessness of war, but it highlights this romance and these two characters coming together and what that means. And there's a huge, There's a huge cliffhanger of sorts at the end of this book. So like, you're going to want the second one almost right away. Either way, this is my beautiful Fairy Loot edition that I don't have the second one for, and I need to find someone who's like selling it on eBay or something because I really like this series. I didn't think I would. I wasn't sure what I was getting into when I started reading it. But if you like that very sweeping feel to your romance, fantastic. Highly, highly, highly recommend. So that is it. Those are all the books that I wanted to talk about today that I could think of that were like my favorites when it comes to books about writing, or just something related to books and writing in some way. So I hope that you guys enjoyed. As always, if you've read any of the books that I mentioned in today's video, please let me know your thoughts on it, and let me know what some of your favorite books or books that you like to recommend that are about books or writing in some way. I would love to know. But if you like this video, and I very much hope that you did, don't forget to give it a big thumbs up and subscribe down below if you want to be part of this awesome growing family. I've also got all my social media down there, as well as other fun bookish links, so definitely check all that out, and I'll see you guys in my next video. Bye.